leader of the free world, saying Bitcoin's here to stay. I'm your Bitcoin president, right? We're going to make America the Bitcoin capital of the world. I want all the remaining Bitcoin mined in America. Is he's trying to acquire 1 million Bitcoin. Big picture, I think we're headed towards a mini recession right now in the United States. I think that's what Trump's planning for. I think we're going to go into a short-term recession for maybe 6 to 12 months. But seeing what Trump's doing, and from what I hear from other people, Trump's strategy is to be the first in, first out. So you're watching gold leaving other countries and being shipped into the United States in like some weird, in like the middle of the night on flights, some odd, I don't know, however many tons of gold just vanished from Argentina. Theoretically, by buying Bitcoin, BlackRock has saved every renter in America roughly $100 to $200 a month off their rent payments. You know, that's what Bukele's done to that country. And how did he do it? Fixed the money. This is their first year, I think, that they're going to have a surplus budget. So he's balanced his budget. He's eradicated the corruption from politics, and he cut off foreign money from influencing his country. And it's that simple.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for being on the show again.
Robin, brother, it's an honor to be here, man. I'm actually stoked. So stoked to be here.
It's really, really cool to have you back on the show. And since we last recorded, so much has happened when we think about the Trump election, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and all these little things in between that happened in the last year, basically. How do you look back at what happened politically, but also in general with Bitcoin?
And what a wild ride it's been, hasn't it, man? Since the last time we talked, I forget where Bitcoin was last time we talked, but maybe 40, 50, 60? Somewhere around there.
Definitely a lot less than now.
Yeah, and we rode all the way up to like 110, and it's sitting at, what is it sitting at right now? Like 87. I just saw it shot up a little bit ago. So, man, it's like, you know how it is. It's just Bitcoin. You never know where it's going to go, but you're always so stoked when it's going up, man. And I'm, I think that, we're Bitcoiners, right? So we're all just humbly waiting for, price to go up. We know it's only going in one direction, and it only stays down for so long, man. So I'm super happy with where Bitcoin's at right now. I did think that, based off of the halvings, this was the first cycle that we put in a new all-time high prior to a halving, where normally you have this political cycle where Bitcoin bull runs, and maybe this is just Satoshi's genius to time them, the creation of Bitcoin or the timing of a halving to a political cycle. So literally in the year leading up to an election in the United States, every single halving, you have this political cycle. So you're always in an environment where the leader of the free world is doing everything humanly possible to make the economy as strong and the stock market as powerful as possible by injecting liquidity, doing what they do, which then drives the price of Bitcoin up. So because of this kind of political landscape being so just bizarre and not normal, I think that's why we haven't seen Bitcoin, go off on this complete ripper in a bull run like we're normally seeing, like this timing after a halving. But I think big picture, I think we're headed towards a mini recession right now in the United States. I think that's what Trump's planning for. I think we're going to go into a short-term recession for maybe 6 to 12 months. But seeing what Trump's doing, and from what I hear from other people, Trump's strategy is to be the first in, first out. So Trump knows that there's so much built up liquidity in these markets, and there's so much brokenness inside of our markets that Trump's trying to basically force us into this depression or a recession, if you will. Let all of that built up animosity and all the crap companies just, work their way out. And then in comes all this money and capital. It's already coming in. You're already seeing Trump sign $500 billion deals, $600 billion deals. I think he's got $1 trillion deal that he's working on. All these trade agreements, all these companies and corporations bringing technology and companies back to America. But that's going to take 12 to 18 months for those jobs to really start paying off, for the new hires, for people to being able to get themselves out of the debt they're in, have that extra capital and start spending it back into the economy again. So that's kind of where I think we're headed.
How important do you think was Trump's election, especially also when you look at Bitcoin?
So, oh man, I think it was the most important. I think it was the most important election in all of history, in all of humanity. If Trump were to have lost that election, if they would have been able to rig it like they were trying to, I don't think America would be standing in 4 years. At the very least, it would not be recognizable. it would be some type of dystopian communist police state. And then you already see how much the rest of the world takes their orders, at least the Western world kind of takes their orders from the United States. When the United States is doing something, they're kind of all doing it and following suit. And you could see that without the USA being the good guy and kind of the leader, you're seeing all the, like these civilizations just collapsing. You're watching it in France, you're watching it in Germany, you're watching it in the UK. I mean, these nations were once the greatest nations in the world, and now they're just shadows of their former self. So I think Trump, at the very least, for the short term, saved America. I think as far as for Bitcoin, if Trump wasn't elected, I don't think it would have mattered that much. As far big picture, long term, short term absolutely was important for Bitcoin, and it kind of sets the bar for the rest of the world. If America is going to make Bitcoin a treasury reserve asset, the second that they actually start acquiring that Bitcoin and printing, or at the very least taking the profit that the Fed makes every year and taking that profit and using that profit to buy additional Bitcoin, that's when I think we're going to really start to see things. You're going to start to see, I think Seyr does it. He says it last, like loser print last, right? It's like once the United States government and the Fed starts printing, it's like, okay, whoever the last Federal Reserve is to fire up that printing press to buy Bitcoin loses, right? In theory. So I think it really leveled that playing field as far as just solidifying Bitcoin as it's not going anywhere, right? You now have the president of the leader of the free world saying Bitcoin's here to stay. I'm your Bitcoin president, right? We're going to make America the Bitcoin capital of the world. I want all the remaining Bitcoin mined in America. I want to acquire. His goal, based off of what his advisors are saying, is he's trying to acquire 1 million Bitcoin. 1 million Bitcoin. That's going to be no small feat. And they're talking about right now remonetizing the gold, and then taking all of the extra value, because we have our gold in our vault valued at $42 an ounce, right? Not 3,100 or whatever it is. So Trump wants to have them reevaluate the value of our gold holdings and change it. Like our certificates say something about gold on them. Oh no, they're the gold certificates that are the gold certificates basically state on them that gold's at $42 an ounce or $37 an ounce or whatever it is. So when it revalues at 3,000 and say we have 42 metric tons or whatever, that's going to give Trump the buying capital of, like, I forget what it is, like some odd trillions of dollars or billions of dollars worth of purchasing power that they're going to use to purchase Bitcoin.
What do you thought about this? And I actually don't know the current status of that. I just know it was a Twitter thing, and with Mt. Gox, and if the gold is actually there. And I think Elon Musk was like, oh, didn't someone check it last year? And he actually learned that nobody checked it. What's going on with that? Did you follow that story?
So you're watching gold leaving other countries and being shipped into the United States in like some weird, in like the middle of the night on flights, some odd, I don't know, however many tons of gold just vanished from Argentina, which is really weird what's going on in Argentina right now. So it's like, why are all these countries basically packing up their gold and shipping it to random locations, right? We think, at least in America, we think that maybe that all that gold wasn't there in the Federal Reserve. So now that our Fed is trying to basically borrow gold just so that when Trump and Elon go in and actually audit, there's gold there. So it'll be pretty interesting to see. They've been talking about auditing the Fed since I was born. Every year there's a politician or somebody or a senator, whether it's Rand Paul, Trump now, Elon, talking about going in and auditing the Fed, and nobody's ever done it. Nobody's actually ever went in and seen that physical gold. So do I think Trump's going to actually do it? I don't know. A lot of what he does, I think, is just for talk and show. Maybe. We'll see.
They have to go in there with a live stream and like bring a hammer and clamp on the gold and see if it's actually true. I mean, I don't know, like what's going on, but if someone does it, then Elon does it.
Elon should go in there with a gold cutting chainsaw and just chainsaw one of the bricks in half, just live on TV, right? Just to make the liberals cry.
That would be one heck of a TV thing. It's super interesting, the current landscape, how governments have to cut down on their spending, how Bitcoin comes up, and how we are seeing that nation state game theory actually play out in real time. It's kind of unbelievable for me to see that actually unfold. If you just think about 2 years ago or 3 years ago where Bitcoin was and where we were in an adoption cycle, if you have told me, oh, the United States president will talk about Bitcoin and he will go to a Bitcoin conference, just that he was at a Bitcoin conference and at the New York pub key and stuff like that. It's just unbelievable for me that we are in that area of the world.
Man, Robin, I mean, I remember building mining computers in 2015. And when there weren't the Saylors, there might have been a Breedlove out there somewhere, but I don't know if he was the Breedlove that we know today, right? Like there was a few people out there that were, but not like the Saylors, right? It was like, oh, you want to learn about Bitcoin? It was, you were watching one of these documentaries. I remember building my first mining computers and I was setting up, you got to go to the pools, right? So I was in a pool called Dwarf Pool at this time. And I built one mining computer and I was mining like 3 coins of Ethereum a day. And then I built a second one. And by the time I built the second one, the algorithm got difficult, right? So I didn't understand, and I was a shitcoiner back then. I didn't know what Bitcoin was, right? So I saw a Bitcoin miner and the person that was telling me about his Bitcoin miner was like, oh, you got to mine this thing called Ethereum. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just built a mining, I didn't know what the difference of any of them was. So, but where I'm going with this is I was, by the time my second computer got built, my first one was mining 3.5 coins. By the time I got my second one built, it was maybe like 3 weeks later, and I get it up and running. And now all of a sudden with 2 computers running, I'm mining like 6 coins or 5.5 coins, right? And like, I didn't understand that it got difficult. I kept thinking that I had my graphics card set up wrong. I wasn't connecting to the pool right. And there weren't tons of tutorials out there and people to teach you. So like, that's how, so to go from that, where I'm mining Ethereum at $2, and I think at the time Bitcoin, the first coin of Ethereum I mined was $2.64, and I think Bitcoin around the time was either 250 or 500. I think it was closer to 500 if I'm not mistaken. So, like, I was watching guys on YouTube trade Bitcoin that there was such low liquidity, right? When this person when he first started, it was live trading. Right? He was doing so good that he started to build this massive following. And then at one point, he got to the point where he had to stop live trading because when he would find a trade to take, so many people were front running his trade live that he was like, basically losing his trade. So he had to set his stream on like a 30-second or a 60-second delay just so he could get his trades off before everybody else. But it was pretty, there was just such low liquidity in the market, 1,000 or 2,000 people watching a live stream, but they all went in to buy something at the same time. Like you could move markets with just the live stream. And now we have BlackRock owning 574,000 Bitcoins. So it's like my mind is just blown, man. I couldn't be more excited.
BlackRock is an interesting one because it was up until the Bitcoin ETF a very big opponent, an enemy picture of Bitcoiners, and it still is. Like Bitcoiners are still very opposed to BlackRock, depending on who you're speaking to. But it definitely made the picture of BlackRock better in the Bitcoin community. How do you look at BlackRock and the importance of them buying? I usually argue that BlackRock buying might even be more important than America buying.
That's a great question. I absolutely despise BlackRock as a company. As far as just them, right? I think Larry Fink's evil. I think BlackRock's evil. I think I think giving one company the ability to go into your 401k account, take all of the money from your 401k, use your money to go buy the assets for you, but then those assets are in their control. So then you're in theory giving them the ability to buy their way onto the board of directors of all of these companies, right? Because when you're the largest shareholder, the top 8 shareholders of any company in America get a seat on the board of directors. And then the board of the directors picks the CEO or picks the managers. The managers write the policies. The policies, for example, being like in 2020, if you talked about the 2020 election being stolen on YouTube, they would strike your channel and take you down. Those orders came from the board of directors that was picked by companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, right? So giving BlackRock all that control and all of this money, and now you give them all of this Bitcoin money, which they have, I think it's $48 billion worth of Bitcoin is what their 578,000 Bitcoin is worth last night when I checked, give or take. That was at an $84,000 Bitcoin, so it's probably up a little bit. Let's just say it's 50 billion, right? Now let's flip that on its head. So what is BlackRock's main investment for their customers? Real estate, single family homes in America. BlackRock owns like 30% of them or something crazy like that. So what we've seen since the creation of that Bitcoin ETF, what was it, about a year ago now, maybe give or take a little bit longer. So in a year, Bitcoin has acquired BlackRock has acquired $50 billion worth of Bitcoin. Why is that a good thing? Well, because that $50 billion would have most likely went into acquiring single family homes in America. That $50 billion into single family homes in America would have driven up the price of rent on every single person's home in America, probably by $100, maybe even a couple $100 a month. So in theoretically, by buying Bitcoin, BlackRock has saved every renter in America roughly $100 to $200 a month off their rent payments. If my numbers are even remotely close, even if they're 50% of that, it's still a substantial amount of money. It's still maybe a week's worth of groceries for your family, a tank of gas over a year-long period. That adds up to be a lot, right? So, as far as it's almost like forcing, I guess I really never thought about it like this, but like Bitcoin forces evil companies to do good, right? And by Bitcoin, when BlackRock acquires 50,000 Bitcoin or 50 billion Bitcoin or $50 billion worth of Bitcoin, who wins? Every single person that's holding Bitcoin. Who wins? Every single person that's not holding Bitcoin, right? Like the world wins. So like Bitcoin forces evil companies to do some good, at least, maybe for the short term, but that's kind of my take on BlackRock.
And I love the aspect of when I hold Bitcoin, BlackRock, Michael Saylor, and all of the other ones that hold Bitcoin are working for me or with me on the same thing. If they're more profitable, they will buy more Bitcoin eventually, which brings the value back into Bitcoin, which kind of connects the whole globe onto one monetary standard. And this makes no difference for you if everyone already does that. It still makes us a little bit difference. But it makes a huge difference if you're early to Bitcoin as you are, as we are, as everyone is that will join Bitcoin in 2026. We have now 2025, but even like next year, if there's not someone new coming, they're still very early to the game, because we can catch the 97% adoption till Bitcoin has actually hit a full saturation point, and it's kind of amazing to think, because I think the massive amount of adoption, a massive amount of wealth is coming after we hit 10, 20, 30% of the adoption, and not now. Like now it's kid numbers. It's like very early, and like we're excited about small things. I look at a little bit that way. See how people were excited when Bitcoin hit $1 or $10. Now we look back as like, who cares if it was $1 or $100? It didn't matter. You got a lot of Bitcoin for not a lot of money. The same way people will look back in like 10 years, like who cares if Bitcoin was at $10,000 or at like $500,000? It was extremely cheap.
Dude, that's the best way to look at it, man. That is absolutely, you are spot on. Dead on the money on that one, my friend. Dead on the stats. Dead on the stats.
Really interesting. You're doing a lot of interesting things, even outside of Bitcoin. Maybe give us some kind of like update what you've been up to the last year. You've done a documentary. You're in El Salvador, and it's all also connected with Bitcoin. I probably I will see you in Vegas as soon at that conference also. So give us an overview of what's going on.
Yeah, so for your audience, if you guys don't know me, my name's Ryan Matta. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I specialize in government-funded child trafficking. So these are the most vulnerable children in the world, specifically these migrant children that have been trafficked from all over the world. I released a couple of documentaries. My last one was called Operation Amber Alert. And it's over on my X page at Ryan Matta Media in my highlights. And also my second one is pinned to the top of my profile if anybody's interested in seeing it. So you guys can see the work that we're talking about here. Now, in that, the first documentary I put out or the Operation Amber Alert, when I put out in November, I ended up having it, or right before that, I was actually in El Salvador for the first time with Eric V. Stacks, and I was working on this Bitcoin documentary. When I was at a party or at an after event down there, I was kind of having this conversation like we're having today, and I was talking to one of these girls. She asked me what I do. I told her, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you got to meet my friend Bob. He runs this rescue orphanage here in El Salvador, and he saves pregnant teenage girls that have been raped and they get pregnant, and he rescues them, and not just rescues them and takes them in. He raises them like they're his own daughters." And I was just like, oh, wow, like, what are the odds? I'm here filming a Bitcoin documentary. I'm at some random place that I wasn't even going to go to. It was raining. Like, it took, just by the grace of God, I randomly ended up at this event. And then, so I agreed to this. And the next day, and I don't even know anything about him. I didn't research him. I was just at this party. She said, yeah, you can do this. And I was like, oh, cool. I got time tomorrow. Might as well. I didn't have anything else going on. I was in El Salvador for a couple of weeks. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Now, I've been doing this for 3 years, Robin, and I've never once found anybody that I could tell you, yes, if you want to donate money to help save children, this is a place to do it. Because every one of these places that I've been to, they're the enemy. They're the ones who's actually aiding and abetting our government in helping them traffic and move these children, whether willingly or just ignorance and plausible deniability. They still should know and should have known and should have prevented it from happening, but they weren't. So I've been just in search, and I walk into this place. Now, when you walk into a place where there's children that have been victims of these type of crimes, right? They're really timid. Their heads down. They're scared. They're timid. They don't they're just very standoffish. You can tell something's not right in those environments. You don't know what it is. And those organizations, they don't let you get close enough to talk to the kids, right? And those kids are just heads down, and they catch a glance out of their eye. And then as soon as they're out of their eye, they're looking over at wherever the manager of the facility is, like to see if they're being watched, something's not right. I walk into this place where that Bob has in El Salvador, and I could instantly feel the love in this organization. I could tell that the girls were safe. They were smiling. They were laughing. They were carrying their kids, and I could just feel the love. And I sat down and I interviewed Bob, and then I got to interview Bukele's auntie. So this is Bukele's godmother, who obviously helped Bob kind of, put this whole thing together, and he saves these children. So come to find out, I interview him, and the people in there were like, Bob really needs for you to help him raise some money to keep these doors open. So I had no idea how bad things were. I just knew that he needed me to help raise money. So I had already completed my documentary that was going to be releasing that November, like 2 weeks later. So I ended up coming home. I paid my editors to expedite the editing of Bob's interview. And I was able to put together like a little 11-minute reel that I put in the end of my documentary. And it wasn't planned. I just randomly threw it in there. I was like, hey, if you guys can help support, this is the guy to do it. This is the one place that you could donate and actually save children. Well, I didn't know it, but he was on, this was November 25th. I released my documentary. I was down there on November 5th or 14th. So not even over a 2-week period. That December was Christmas. And in El Salvador, Bukele just passed the law where all companies and corporations have to pay their employees double for December. So whatever you pay your employees per month, you have to double their salary by law in El Salvador for Christmas, right? For December. So he had to pay double that month. Well, he didn't have enough money to make payroll. So I put up his donation link, and we raised almost $30,000 for him. Not only were we able to save the foundation, Robin, we were able to keep it open for quite possibly maybe forever now. It has enough of a runway to keep it on its feet, and it's got so much help from outside sources now, all because I was at a Bitcoin event. That's how Bitcoin and networking in this industry kind of brings things together. But the big picture is, how do you keep organizations like that self-sufficient? And we had kind of had this conversation, and the guy who I was down there interviewing, Eric V. Stacks, right? So
yeah,
Eric,
he was on a podcast.
Yeah, you've interviewed Eric. He's an awesome guy, and he talks about what's called Bitcoin, basically escape velocity. And you had talked about Seyr kind of talking about making businesses immortal. So my theory that I'm still kind of tossing around is like, can we use Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset for organizations like the House of Life that do so much good for the world, but are in this never ending, cycle of like constantly needing to figure out how to generate capital to keep the doors open. And then eventually you end up having to sacrifice because you can't afford to pay the right employees. You end up taking a bad employee, and then a bad employee is somebody that you don't want around kids, right? These are environments in very like high risk and very sensitive environments for these children. So it's important that at the very least, these organizations have the funding that they need. And now we had talked about some numbers, but basically my theory is that if you get, like, say your operating cost for your business are $100,000 a year. If you could put $1 million of Bitcoin into a treasury reserve the first year the first day that you think about basically creating this organization, and you can let that sit there for 2 years. Now, you could probably do it off a year, but I want to give that 2-year window just in case we have these cycles like we have now and Bitcoin takes a 50%. You really don't want to sell, so you kind of need to just not take your money out that year and then wait for it to come back up at least. So I just say 2-year buffer. But in theory, if you can get, so if your operating costs are 100,000, you would need to get $1 million in your treasury reserve, right? So you need 10% of your operational cost. So if I have $1 million in that reserve, and Bitcoin just goes up by 10% per year, in theory, I could take out $100,000 of capital. My total value of my Bitcoin holdings would stay at $1 million. And then the next year, if it makes 10%, it would stay at $1 million. I could take out another 10%. My theory is that it goes up by 20%. So you would actually be able to take out your 10%, and then you're still going to grow the total value of your Bitcoin holdings. There has to be some happy medium there. And I'm sure people like Seyr have really thought this through and know it precise, but there is a way, I guarantee, to use Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset to basically make organizations like the House of Life that rescue children that are being trafficked immortal. And that's kind of where I'm kind of going. I want to toss it around. And if my theory is right and I'm able to stack and save enough Bitcoin over the next 2 to 4 years, as we go up to that next level, you most likely will see me funding my own child trafficking rescue organization with my Bitcoin and trying to basically test out this theory. Now, it might be a small one. It might only help 5 kids or 6 kids. It just might be something small, but I want to prove and test out this theory, because if it's done and done right, then you remove the government's you remove an organization's need to go and work with the government, which is what seems to be the common denominator, and where all of these organizations go downhill is when you start allowing the government to get involved with babysitting children.
I love that. And we often talk about how important it is to have the best tool. And there's like this extreme example of, if you show up with a gun to a fist fight, you win. And financially, if you show up with Bitcoin versus the other ones are on a Fiat standard, you win, because you have the superior technology. And there's even this, I just had a podcast, the previous episode with Trey Sellers, and we talked about retirement on Bitcoin. That's why it's currently on my mind. And we talked about how the FIRE community has this 4% rule. So you should have community? The FIRE community, like financial independence, retire early.
Okay.
You don't know? You never heard about FIRE? Oh, interesting. It's a very popular community in personal finance, which basically teaches, hey, live really frugally, invest your money, and then reach an investment goal. And when you reach that goal, you can live off your investment and be financially independent, even with a normal job, and you don't have to be like an entrepreneur. It's an interesting concept. And they have a very popular 4% rule, which is a similar concept that you just said. They have it. Let's stick with that $1 million. If you have $1 million in investments, they say, because it will outperform the purchasing power, $1 million, you can take out 4% of that every year, and you will have at the end of it more than you actually started with.
Yep.
And now if you don't do it in fiat land, but actually do it in Bitcoin land, we now have, or Trey Sellers has the theory, you can even take out 8% every year, and you will probably be fine over the next 5, 10, 20 years, because 8% of a million is like $80,000. So it's actually really close to the numbers you said, which is fascinating. And it all ties back towards, if you adopt Bitcoin on individual level, on a nation state level, on child trafficking rescue organization level, at a company level, a startup level, whatever it is, you will have, you can cover your yearly expenses with the growth of Bitcoin and make your company immortal. And yeah, you just said it. This was literally the title of my Michael Saylor interview. Bitcoin makes your company immortal, and he said it, and he gave the theory around that. And it's super interesting to think about that. And I love, and that's why I said it, I love when good people and good causes use that. Because the worst thing about Bitcoin is your enemy can also use it, like BlackRock can also have Bitcoin because it's open and permissionless. That's the worst thing about Bitcoin. But it's so great to see that you and how Bob, I think was his name, also uses that and kind of goes towards that. That's really cool to see. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, man, and it's crazy watching the Bitcoin community, and like, I mean, I do this in the political world, like all day. I live it. I'm in it. I'm always around it. As far as like support, like I've gotten, I don't want to say I've gotten no support, but like as far as like I've personally had support, we've raised some money for Bob as far as it, but as far as like people wanting to get involved, it's been the Bitcoiners. It really has been the Bitcoiners. I mean, I didn't reach out to Bitcoin Vegas. This was all done by somebody that watched one of my documentaries, contacted Bob. They started talking, and now they're in it. And then she had some connections, and she got us. And now we're going out to speak at. I say Bitcoin Nashville because it was in Nashville last year. Bitcoin Vegas. I'm an idiot. I just can't get that out of my head. The Bitcoin conference in Vegas. I'm sure, Robin, you got a promo code, don't you? What's your promo code for Bitcoin Nashville?
My code is Robin.
Robin, there it is. Robin, you guys got to use code Robin to get you guys self the discount over there at Bitcoin Vegas if you guys haven't got tickets yet, because it's gonna be a good time. So yeah, and actually, what's really cool, Robin, I don't know if I've told you, but I've been working on, when I first went to El Salvador, I was going to film a Bitcoin documentary. That was my goal with Eric. Me and Eric were both going to do it together. But Eric's schedule changed and he got really busy. So he wasn't able to go in and go on this journey with me to actually film the Bitcoin documentary. So I've been slowly working on the Bitcoin documentary, just getting one interview. Like I got Mike Peterson when I was in El Salvador last time. You're going to be in at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas. So hopefully I'll get you in Vegas and maybe some other people there as well. If you got anybody that is interested or whatever, maybe we could do a couple interviews together, and I'll have all my equipment too. So if you need anything, let me know, and you can just borrow my equipment or I can film it for you. If you need anything, I'll have all my gear with me. So, but yeah, so we're going to speak there, and I have a documentary on El Salvador, and it's called The Great El Salvadorian Comeback, God, Bukele, and Bitcoin. And it should be finished in about 3 weeks, but I think I'm going to try to hold out, and I might release it during the Bitcoin conference, which I think would be pretty cool. Maybe I can get them to let me do a free screening of it there and at an after event or something. I don't know. I'm going to try to work some angles. Once it gets done, I have a trailer. I actually have a trailer for it. I can send you as well if you're interested in seeing it, and it'll just give you a little taste. I had 3 different editors that work for me. So my third editor tried to edit this the first time, and he ended up getting busy with exams, so he had to stop editing it after he finished the trailer. So then I have another editor that's completely redone the whole thing. So it'll probably be a little bit different, but this will give you a taste of what it's going to be like. And it's actually a really good trailer. So I'm super excited because it highlights, what Bitcoin has done for El Salvador and how it's exponentially changed the life of every single citizen in that country. What are your thoughts on El Salvador making Bitcoin not legal tender?
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. I love that. And I mean, there has been some controversy around the IMF deal recently. I personally think it was a clever move of Nayib Bukele actually of doing that, because he didn't lose anything and he has definitely more leverage now. Bitcoin is, as we say, it gives the right. We always say fix the money, fix the world, and Bitcoin fixes the money. But there's some fundamental truth to that. There's something extremely powerful when you adopt Bitcoin on an individual level, on a nation state level, on whatever level you take it. I have seen it so many times. And I think my podcast is also a testament a little bit towards that, because I interview not only the Michael Saylors, the big ones, but I interview people that have never been on a podcast before that just want to share the Bitcoin story. And one thing that always comes out, that Bitcoin is always a fork in the road of their own personal journey. Something happens there. I mean, of course, there are people that have done very well before Bitcoin and done even better afterwards. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people where they adopted Bitcoin and they got hope back. All of a sudden, they can save in something. They never had savings. And it's actually, my girlfriend actually experienced that herself. She never had savings in her life. Now she experienced Bitcoin. Now she's excited about saving. She's like, I'm so looking forward to the salary to just save a few $100s each month to Bitcoin. And it's because she now all of a sudden has hope again of like, oh, I can actually accumulate something. I can actually do something with that. And this financial stability, this financial security is something that gives a nation extremely hopeful thinking in the most positive way of we can turn this thing around. And El Salvador has a lot of like a long way to go. It's not completely fixed, I would say. It's not like it went from 2020 to now it's a perfect country. Obviously, it's a way harder story, but it's extremely impressive what they have done. I'm super impressed with the stories I've heard how El Salvador was before and how I have seen it last November when I was there. I felt super safe. The country is really, really cool. It's kind of clean also. There was not like, I expected not that clean of a country. The people are extremely hopeful and extremely positive and extremely nice, way nicer than they are in Europe. So you have a country that has true potential. And that is partially because of Bitcoin, and also partially just because Bukele and the team and the country and the people are just in the right place of mind. So I'm really looking forward to seeing El Salvador in 10 years. 20 years, because then you can really see differences. Now we can see differences on a smaller level or like on a beginning stage level, but those will be immense if they keep going in 10, 20 years.
Wait till you see my film, brother. It's going to blow your mind. I'm going to walk you through what El Salvador looked like in the 60s all the way to 2019. And during that period of time, the United States government funneled $7.5 billion into El Salvador and turned it over that period of time and turned it into the deadliest country in the world. Bukele comes in 2019. First thing he does is start cutting off funding from USAID and all these organizations, right? Starts investigating the corruption inside of his cabinet, gets rid of as many corrupt politicians as he can. Then at the 2.5-year mark, he had just started finishing those mega prisons. He had started building those prisons, right? Got those prisons, started putting cartel members in those prisons. And that's when the cartel members went on a murdering spree. Like, oh yeah, you're going to crack down on us? And they went around and they slaughtered in one day 63 innocent civilians. They just went on a rampage. And it didn't matter who you were, they were just killing people to kill people. And that's when there was so much. In that weekend, I think they killed 172, if I'm not mistaken, in one weekend, innocent people. So that created so much public outrage that even the Democrats on the left couldn't vote against Bukele on this one vote. That gave him the ability to suspend the Constitution. He then went and passed a law that stated basically any gang, if you're basically covered in from head to toe and you have teardrops and that show how many people you've killed, you don't get a court date. You go straight to prison for life and you're never going to see the light of day again. And he's arrested 88,000 of the most deadly and violent gangbangers on the face of the earth. And he's turned out El Salvador. And then on top of that, then after that, he I believe this was at his last, he just got reelected, right? And this was for his second 5-year term. I believe that day, on the day that he won his reelection, was the day that he ordered his entire cabinet. At some point, he comes in and he orders his sergeant at arms to investigate everybody in this room. And that was his entire cabinet. And I believe he got rid of one more, I think, Supreme Court judge and 2 more politicians, if I'm not mistaken. And they've also impeached the corrupt judges, which we're kind of seeing here in America. And that's why you see people like Bukele saying you got to impeach the corrupt judges. They're not following the Constitution. They have to go. But either way, he's now turned that country into the safest country in Latin America. Like you said, it is safe. The people are so happy there. Robin, I just bought property there, right? So I bought some land in El Salvador. And in the process of buying the land, I flew down there to get the land and I had rented this truck. And I was like, okay, this big truck in El Salvador. Like could you imagine driving like a big 4-door truck on those small roads in El Salvador? I mean, they're tiny. You got this big truck and it ain't like roads in America or in Europe. I mean, it's tight. You can't move anywhere. So long story short, I was just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Sorry. I was like, I can't drive this truck. I'm just going to go buy a car. I was like, okay, cool. How do I buy a car? Oh, I need cash here. All right, cool. How am I going to cash? Oh, Bitcoin ATM, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go from ATM to ATM to ATM till I can get out enough cash. Well, by the time I got out enough cash, it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I couldn't buy the car. So I'm just going to get an Uber home. Not realizing that there's 2 roads in El Salvador that are basically named the same thing. I copied what I thought was the address, and I searched it in Uber. And what popped up was they're the exact same road, but one of them had like something a little bit different in the front, and I clicked the wrong one. So me just being on my phone, I hop in this Uber and I'm not paying attention. I'm just like, man, it feels like we've been driving for a long time, but it's El Salvador. Sometimes you go 3 miles and it takes 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes like literally like 2 hours, right? So I was just like, whatever, not paying attention, just on my phone in the back of the car. 40 minutes later, I get to this place and I look around. I'm like, this doesn't look like my place. But when you get dropped off in El Salvador and you're going to all these other places, like a lot of times, like you don't recognize it, but then you like walk around the street like, oh, that's where my place was, right? So I was like, okay, maybe the Uber dropped me off in the wrong. I get out. Now, remind you, I got like over $10,000 cash in my backpack, right? I get out of this Uber and I'm like, this ain't right. But I'm like, maybe it's right around the street. And I start walking and walking. I'm like, okay, this definitely ain't it. Now I go to my phone and I just hit my actual, like I had the address and my thing saved in there. And I look at my map and I'm like, dude, I'm 40 minutes away. And then I start looking around and I go, oh boy, I'm in a bad area. Like I got dropped off in a really bad area, or at one point was a bad area, right? These are the areas where, they're basically solid cement walls, but they're 12 feet tall and they're in front of your property, right? And then they don't just have the regular gates in front of their property. They have the solid steel gates. Like some of the places just have like a wooden door that opens and just kind of blocks people from like ramming through. And then certain areas have like the solid steel gates so that like if gunfire breaks out, like the bullets aren't going into the house. And then on top of that, they have the concertina razor wire on top of those cement walls. And then, so I'm like, now I'm walking around. I'm like, okay, how long is my next Uber to get here? I'm like, Uber. Shit, I order my Uber. It's 40 minutes away for the next Uber to get to me. So I'm like, shit, I got a lot of money. It's getting dark now, right? So now I'm 40 minutes after I left at 9 o'clock. So now it's probably getting closer to like 10:30, almost 11 o'clock. And I'm out in this really bad area. And I'm just walking for a second. Like, I don't know if I want to stand here and pretend like I look like I'm lost, or if I should just start aimlessly walking, right? And then kind of come back to meet my Uber back here. So I kind of paused there for a second, and all of a sudden I hear laughter and I hear footsteps. And the next thing I know, there's a 12 and a 13. I'm just guessing on age. It could have been 11 and 10. It could have been 14 and 15. But like it looked like a 13 and a 14-year-old boy and girl laughing, kicking a soccer ball, come running down the road. And I look around a little bit more, and there's a family up on like up over this hill in their yard thing, having like this barbecue thing, right? And then there's this party store behind me, and there's this little girl out there, like by like the Coke sign and like waving, right? And I was like, oh, party store. I'll walk over to the party store, walk in. It's just so nice, so polite. Dude, I didn't have a worry in the world. 3 years ago, I probably would have been killed and robbed before I even made it into that party store in that area, right? Then you could see in the walls, because they're all that cement stucco, but they've been painted over, but you could see that you can, I mean, maybe it wasn't a bullet, but I mean, those dots are, pretty common for bullet, like a bullet hit that cement and left that little, divot there. So you could see the bullet holes all in these stucco walls. At one point, there were some shootouts there. So, that's what Bukele's done to that country. And how did he do it? Fix the money, right? At the first, this is their first year, I think, that they're going to have a surplus budget. So he's balanced his budget. He's eradicated the corruption from politics, and he cut off foreign money from influencing his country. And it's that simple. I mean, it is the safest, beautiful, happiest. I mean, if I could retire in some place, I think forever, I think it would be El Salvador. At the very least for the next 5 to 10 years, like you said.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this story I heard, I mean, not this story, but similar stories from people that have been to El Salvador before and came back, or have been living in El Salvador all the time. I've heard at least 3-4 times from completely different people. And it's amazing to see how safe it is again. Because once the country is safe again and the people are hopeful again, then things can build on top of that. If they don't feel safe, why should they build anything in the country? If they don't feel, if you want to build a business and you're not sure if one day a gang comes along and gets all your money and maybe kills your family, you will not build anything in that country. You're trying to survive or get out of the country. And the security that comes from that is really crucial to build anything. And then they also adopt Bitcoin. Then they're innovative, they're kind, they're loving personalities, and it's a safe, clean place. So I have a lot of hope for El Salvador. I do have a lot of, I see a lot of positive things.
Yeah, Robin, I wouldn't let my 11-year-old son, and I live in a fairly rich, I would say, white community, right? I want to say rich, but a nice, there's probably not a home in this area for under $125,000, right? So it's like, and whatever. So it's got like a homeowners association. I wouldn't let my son walk to the park by himself, okay? In El Salvador, I was watching what looked like a 7-year-old girl walking her 5-year-old brother to school through a town that would remind me of like almost like Times Square, right? Like there were people everywhere. There were so many people that like traffic was like bumper to bumper, because like every time one car would go, you'd have to stop and wait for more people to cross the road. It was just like a never ending, people everywhere. And it wasn't just one, Robert. I seen a bunch all over the place. It looked like just kids were walking themselves to school without their parents. And I thought to myself, like, if I would have seen that anywhere else, I would have been like, dude, those kids are going to, one of these, it'll just be a day or two before somebody snatches one of these kids. In El Salvador, oh, no. It's like they've arrested all the criminals. And once they did, it's like normal people like us don't want to commit crimes, right? So when you put the true criminals in prison and and people aren't incentivized to commit crime, right? Because in El Salvador, the punishment is you're in one of those prisons with those dudes, and you really don't want to be there. So whatever reward you're going to have to give me is going to have to be exponential. Like I'm not just going to go, start selling some drugs for some, from peanuts, right? I'm not going to go rob somebody's car so I can eat one time, because I might end up in that for years, right? So maybe just getting a job is the best way to go. And then you see these people, it doesn't matter if it's the person pumping your gas. It doesn't matter if it's the person flipping your burgers at Wendy's or the waitress that's serving your Pizza Hut at Pizza Hut. They couldn't be more proud to be working. It's like you look at let's say a 21-year-old that's working at McDonald's in America or Wendy's in America. You're hoping they don't spit on your food. They look so miserable. In El Salvador, like they're all smiles. You need a napkin. And the sad part is like these people would give you the shirt off their back too, and they're the nicest, kindest, most humble and hopeful people in the world. And I think that El Salvador in 5 years will be the next Dubai. I don't think it's going to take 10.
I love that. And it will be awesome to look back at that conversation in 5-10 years and see, maybe we can even record it in El Salvador, make an in-person podcast there in 5 years and look back how the development has went. I think that's what I'm most excited actually about documenting in public. Then I can see in 5-10 years how clever or stupid I was.
Well, we can record it at my place down there, because I'm building, my house will be done. Well, it's actually getting shipped out here in about 2 weeks. I built one of those dome homes. I don't know if you've ever seen, they're like the giant bubbles.
Dome homes.
Yeah, man, I'll show you one. They're really freaking cool. They're like this. So it's the domebrothers.com is the company that I'm using. You guys can use code Matta over there. If you ever see one of these dome homes that you like, just use code Matta and they'll hook you up. They're an awesome group of guys, man. And you can get these homes for, depending on the size of so go to that one in the top. They're not the solid clear bubbles. They're So like, that could be one of them in the inside, but the one on the right there with the two homes that are connected. Yeah, that's what they basically look like on the inside. That's what mine will look like.
Love that look.
But I'm building mine on the side of a mountain. So when you look out my front window like that, it's going to be over a mountain cliff.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah. I've never seen dome homes.
Let me see if I can send you I think I got mine right here. I can send you a picture of what mine, in theory, is supposed to look like. It'd be pretty cool, man. I'm excited for it. That's for sure. So yeah, inside one of those, I'm going to build a giant studio. So it'll be a really cool place to record, I think.
As soon
And
as it's finished, let me know. I will plan my trip to El Salvador.
I'll have a place down there as well. So if you and your girlfriend ever need to go down there for a couple of days and you don't feel like renting a place, just let me know, and I'll just you can stay at my place for free.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So yeah, there's one down there in the mountains. That's it. Sweet, dude. I'm so excited, man. What do you got going on over the next? Where do you see yourself in the next 2 years?
You mean from the location?
Yeah, like what do you see yourself? Are you hoping to take what you're doing and move, or you staying put where you're at?
There is two, like what I do, I can take wherever I want. I have zero income from Austria, so I'm currently living in Austria. So like, there's nothing binding me to Austria. I'm still very hopeful that maybe situations change for the better, and every day I'm kind of proven wrong and getting less hopeful in that regard.
For Austria?
Even in Austria, yeah. But I'm still hopeful. Maybe it's young and naive, but I'm still hopeful for Austria and Europe. I'm one that actually wants to stay close to the family. I want to stay close to my roots. I want to build something meaningful and big in Austria. But if they are doing something very wrong, if I see the direction going in a very wrong direction, I'm taking my microphone, my camera, which is very easy to take, and my girlfriend, and just take it wherever I want to take it. Where it would go, I don't know. It's a very hard thing to say, because El Salvador is so far away from Austria. I traveled there last November, and it was around 23 hours with the plane. When you account for everything, like going to from house to house, basically, the flight itself is a little shorter. So, and there are no direct flights also. Nope. So I have to fly over Canada or America. So, this is a little bit complicated. So I want to stay closer to Austria, to the family. Even if I'm outside of Austria, I don't want to be that far away. So I'm probably not in El Salvador, honestly, even though I like the country a lot and I visited there. And right now, if I had to leave Austria, I would look into Madeira. I would look into Dubai. I would look into Switzerland, because Switzerland is outside of the EU, so it might be a few years better than Austria. So there are certain places, like I have
been to Malaysia.
That is also a place that I actually looked at. It also depends, like, what is the financial situation at that point. Depending on how much wealth you have, it depends on where you can go or what makes sense for it. Also, like, what's the income and what's the business situation then. There's so many factors there that I have to consider. So in 2 years, I'm probably, hopefully, still in Austria, or in a situation where I have 2-3 standpoints where I'm like, okay, I hear something, and I'm not in any country more than half a year, which would give me a lot of freedom. I thought about it a lot. But there's no concrete plan up until now, because I'm still happy with the way things go in Austria. But this could change. And it also depends highly on what the EU is doing and how things play out. And I'm I'm very easy movable. My business is completely online. I have partners in America, Switzerland, everywhere. I can just go, and I just need a white wall behind me, and nobody would even notice that I'm somewhere else. so it's super easy for me to move and take my girlfriend wherever we take. She's not from Austria, so she's from India. So it's not like she's getting away from the family anyway. So I'm her family here in Austria. So if we go, she would just come with me, or if she wants to go, I would come with her. That's my current state from location wise. So maybe, I don't know if it's a satisfactory answer.
No, man, that's an absolute great answer, man. Dude, I'm so stoked to see where you're at, bro. You're up to 14,000 now over on YouTube. Congratulations, brother. What were you at? What were you at in our first interview? Like a couple thousand or something like that?
Yeah, I just started. I think it was probably like a year ago, and I got monetized. I know in March last year. So this is a year ago, and you get monetized when you reach the 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, so I probably had like 2,000 subscribers maybe, and I had not really had a lot of sponsors, or I couldn't sustain myself even.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can sustain myself and have post-production team. With team is like 3 people that work part-time, but it's like more or less 1 employee if you count them together. So it's been a great journey doing the podcast, and now I'm also invited to speak at Vegas. I'm invited to speak at Prague and all those places, and not because I pay for a slot or because I have a company that pays for a slot, just because they invited me to speak there. I don't know. I've never talked about that actually on the podcast. The first time I ever went to speak on a conference was last year in Amsterdam, and I wanted to go to Bitcoin Amsterdam, also organized from Bitcoin Magazine, the same guys that do Bitcoin Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to have a press pass because I didn't want to pay for the ticket. I was like, hey, can I have a press pass? And the guy, Greg, writes me back and says, no, but we would love to have you as a speaker. And this is how I entered the speaker scene in Bitcoin, because there's one guy, Greg, that just believed in me and said like, oh, like I've never seen you on any stage, but I've seen your podcast, so please come on our main stage in Amsterdam in front of 2,000 people in person and like 10,000 in the stream. And I've never talked before that at any stage. So that was pretty significant for me.
Were you nervous getting up there the first time? It's weird going out on a stage like that, isn't it? The first time?
I was more than nervous, because this was 2 sides for me. Like I was not giving a talk. I did not have a presentation. I moderated a panel. So I moderated a panel with 3 other people. So I knew it's basically the same thing that I'm doing in a podcast. I'm giving
better, dude.
That's what was good for me. But it's very different to a podcast because some people actually watch you live, and you have like the headphones, and you walk on stage, and like there's a whole thing with like getting your microphone right, and like the nervous, the things are building up, and it's just it's a whole different a game. And I was super nervous, and as soon as I start talking, I just focused on the other speakers. And after 2-3 minutes, I forgot that I'm on stage because I just went full into podcast mode. I was like just talking with them. And then it was over after half an hour because you have the clock there. And they said like, oh, don't go further. And the clock was running, and I was like, oh, we are already above the time. We have to wrap it up now, because I was so into podcast mode, and I just go with like we are now already recording over an hour, and you're just one guy. I had 3 guys, so I could go on for like 3 hours with them.
Time goes by quick when you're up there, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And also one maybe small story around that. After 10 minutes, so we prepared what we will say a little bit, but after 10 minutes, our script went like we covered everything that we discussed. So the podcast mode really started, and from if someone watched the 30-minute clip, I think it's probably on the Bitcoin Magazine YouTube channel somewhere. After 10 minutes, all my pre-prepared questions were done. And from the next 20 minutes is just improvise of like what I think might be interesting. And improvising in front of like 2,000 people and 10,000 watching live, that was a scary thing, but I loved it. And then I did it in Abu Dhabi, the same thing, in El Salvador, emceed even, and I will be on a panel in Vegas. I don't know if it's on the main stage or on a side stage till now, but either way, it will be so cool. So I'm really stoked to also see you finally in person. It feels like I know you since years, and I've never seen you in person.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna come on when you're doing that panel. Let me know what time and day that is there, and I'll come and shoot some B-roll in the crowd and give you some behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, that would be awesome. Wow. I love that. Yeah. One last topic that I want to cover, because I know you have your live show coming up. One last topic that I'm really interested in. And we covered it last time also, and I want to kind of get an updated thing on that. We talked about freedom of speech and the platforms that they currently have. How do you look at YouTube, Twitter, Nostra, and all those different platforms that we have now? And even Zuckerberg now removed the filters and went on to Joe Rogan and all those things. How do you look at the social media landscape and censorship resistance and all those? And maybe also, is it getting better compared to like 1 year, or maybe even worse?
So it's really interesting to watch what we're seeing here in America anyways, because there's one specific topic that you cannot talk about or say, right? I can say anything negative about America, my own government, my own politicians, but the second I talk about Israel, right, you're basically deplatformed, censored, shut down, kicked off of every platform on the face of the earth except for X right now. But they will demonetize you on X for speaking out too much against Israel. So it's really interesting to see how free speech is really, YouTube was the most censored, the most secure platform. And TikTok actually used to be the place where all the, like the Palestine and Gaza and Israel stuff was actually blowing up on TikTok. And then that forced our politicians to ban TikTok in America. And now TikTok has just deplatformed like every single conservative last week, or this was like 3 days ago. They just went on a purge, and like all conservatives are basically nuked off of TikTok. So TikTok's probably one of the most censored and compromised platforms right now, and I say that because my DMs were blowing up this week about people complaining that they're now getting like 5 or 10 times more views on Instagram and Facebook than they are on TikTok, which is the complete night and day opposite. So Zuckerberg seems to be following through and making free speech a thing again on Facebook again, until you talk about one thing, right? So there's free speech in America as long as you're not being negative or criticizing Israel. If you are pro-Israel and you support Israel and like you're like a diehard Israel loyalist, everything you put out will be amplified to the max, and they'll amplify your voice more than anybody else around you. So I don't know if you call it free speech. I think that Nostra is the future. I think that the Nostra community and the Bitcoin community as a whole during the TikTok ban missed the biggest opportunity in a lifetime. That red line or red vine or whatever that new Chinese TikTok is. So basically in America, they were banning TikTok. They banned TikTok because they said that because it was a Chinese company and we were giving a Chinese company access to all of our personal information, and they shouldn't have that information. So Americans wanted to send a big middle finger to our government. So we all went and got on the App Store, and we downloaded some random, like the new TikTok. It's called like Red Vine or Red Stripe or whatever it was. And in 24 hours, it became the number one downloaded app in the world with 150 million downloads in 24 hours, 150 million new users on one social media platform in 24 hours. That should have been Nostra. And if that push would have made it to Nostra and all 150 million people got on Nostra in one day, oh my Lord, dude, it would have been over. So I'm expecting something like that to happen. There will come some push, unless we go to complete free speech and it's like solidified in our Constitution and laws are implemented, that if a social media platform or a government or anybody tries to change that or take that away from us, it's prison, right? Like if you're trying to undermine or take away our ability to speak freely and you're caught or you're lobbying for it or you're pro it in any other way, it should be a crime and you should be punished, right? So unless we put those parameters in place, it just seems inevitable that eventually we get to a point where we're back in the same boat we were in 2016 or 2020, I mean. So we're going to see how it plays out. I don't think we can say we have free speech yet. I'm glad that Elon Musk is doing what he's doing. I'm glad that we are able to have these conversations, and I'm glad it's really interesting starting to learn about the history that really happened, right? Not the history we were taught in school. Everything we were taught in school has basically been a lie. Like they just found that out that Hitler didn't die and he fled to Argentina and he had 3 kids. Like, wait, what just happened? Like, oh, there's an Ark of a Covenant. They just found this secret tomb that's 2 miles under the pyramids, and there's this Ark of the Covenants down there. Oh, okay. So we're really starting to find out all these things because of platforms like X. Like they can't silence and censor the narrative in real time anymore. So I don't know. I'm hopeful, but I'm glad we have things like Nostra. That's for sure.
Nostra is the exit valve in case the other ones are going crazy. And even if they don't go crazy, I think Nostra has a great future. I love that. Asked one question to each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
What can we learn from you besides Bitcoin? Oh, I wasn't ready for that one.
I didn't do it the first time around. I think it was something.
The first time you asked me what kind of question what should I ask the next guest or something like that?
Yeah, that's still there, but I have an addition to that. That's now the addition to that.
So say that question again. What can you learn from me besides Bitcoin? I would say that you can never. So if you never say what if today, you will never wonder if you never say good enough today, you'll never have to ask yourself, what if tomorrow? So when you think about something like, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow. No, don't do it tomorrow. If you have something that needs to be done, just do it and get it done. Because if you get it done today, tomorrow, you're never going to go, well, what if I would have did that yesterday, or what if I would have? No, just do it and get it done. There's never underestimate your ability to work hard, right? And you're always able to work harder. So, I've never been disappointed at myself for, spending an extra 2 hours at work or working 2 hours over or working 2 hours of overtime. I've never been disappointed at myself for going to the gym. I've never been disappointed at the gym for staying and doing an extra 2 or 3 reps, right? You can always go above and beyond. You can always push yourself to the next limit. So just never get complacent, never sit still. Try to outwork your competition and just go out of your way to make the world a better place. That's about it.
I love that so much. Really cool. And I can 100% agree to that also. We have still our end routine where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. A completely different question again, even though we already covered it a little bit. Have you ever played around with mining? And I know that you have, so we'll ask why.
So have I ever played around with mining? I played around with mining. I can't tell you how many times, Robin. And the idea was because I thought it was, when I first understood or thought I understood what a miner was, I looked at it like an employee. Dude, I'm jealous, man. I need one of those mugs for myself, man. Thing's massive.
It's a beer stein. So it contains 1 liter, but I always drink water from it. I don't even drink beer myself.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I got into mining because when he told me, he explained what a miner was. He explained that he paid $300 for this piece of equipment. He plugged it into a wall. He spent $50 a month on electricity, and it made him $100. So after 6 months, he paid off this piece of metal, and then every month after that, it would make him $50. Now, he didn't explain the difficulties levels and yada, yada, yada. But I asked, how long is that computer going to be able to run for and do that? He said, 4 years. I said, okay. So I just started doing the math and I go, well, I got one of these and it's making me $50 a day or a month. If I get 2, that's $100. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing the math and I'm like, okay, I'm making, at the time, probably $2,000 or $3,000 a month. And I'm just calculating how many of these computers do I need to build so that I don't have to go to work and I can just work on these mining rigs, right? So that's kind of why I got into mining and why I thought I was going to be this expert miner. And then sometimes when you're running business and starting businesses, I say you got to get really good at knowing when you've hit your limit and when you should cut your losses, right? So eventually you're doing something and you go you just realize that no matter how hard you work, no matter how much effort you put into this, in your current environment that you're in, right? I had to work 2 jobs, right? I just couldn't dedicate all my time to it. So I was just strapped. And with the resource I had, I knew it was never going to be successful. So sometimes you just have to rip that Band-Aid off, even though you're going to lose 10, 20, probably $30,000 I lost mining. Or I would have if, I wasn't mining when it was like $2, right? But like just my equipment, everything like that. At one point I was probably at a $30,000 loss because I was holding on to this coin that was, worth dollars. Now it's, in reality, I was mining like $7,000 a day or $12,000 a day. And ETH at $2.64. I was mining 3.5 coins a day. I was mining with all my computers at its peak, closer to 6. So, that's a lot. Would have been, but at the time, even when I got done mining and I had 1,000 coins of Ethereum at $10, it's 10,000, right? And I'm still out this massive amount of money that I put, and not even just that. Like I converted I took my, long story short, my dad came over. We converted a master walk-in closet into a mining farm. So like we cut a big hole in my door and put an intake fan. Then we went and got one of those giant, if you've ever been to like a beach, they have those giant outhouses with those massive fans, those exhaust fans to stink out all the bathrooms in a beach. And I put one of those in the ceiling, in my roof, in my rafters, in my closet. And we vented it out to the bathroom exhaust port. So I had this huge mining operation. I put a lot of money into it. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not keep those dang things running. It's a graphics card. It was a cord. It was this. It was that. It was a riser. And just finally just never being able to keep my rigs running for longer than like a week or 3 weeks or, I just said, you know what? I realized that if I would have just taken that money and I would have just bought the coin and I would have held the coin, with the amount of money that I put into the mining equipment, if I would have just bought the asset and held the asset, I would have been like 100,000 times richer. And I still didn't learn my lesson. And I tried to do it again in 2017 or 2018. Same scenario, same thing. And now I just realized, like, dude, sometimes you're just not built for something, and I'm not built for mining. So I'm just a humble Bitcoiner and I just buy and stack Bitcoin. It's easier for me to mine fiat is what I should say. I've learned that I can go out and I can mine fiat by working and doing what I do outside of the Bitcoin world easier than I can from mining and doing stuff inside the Bitcoin world.
Very true. And I think mining is an interesting one because you can have a BitX, but it's more like a lottery and not a business, and stuff like that.
I got 2 BitXs, sorry. They're running right next to me.
Really
so maybe
cool.
I am still mining a little bit, but they're just BitXs, all right.
Yeah, it's more lottery.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm solo mining.
But I think I never calculated. It's probably better odds than the actual lottery.
I would bet. I think so. I don't play the lottery, and I got these things running. So
really cool. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and also see more of your documentaries and stuff like that?
Yeah, thank you. Mainly I'm on X. That's the biggest platform, at Ryan Matta Media. But I also have an X crypto account, which is at Shots by Matta. I don't post over there very often, but anytime I do an interview with somebody crypto related, all my crypto tutorials, I went down to El Salvador and did a bunch of tutorials on all the equipment, all the Bitcoin hardware wallets and stuff like that. They're all over on my crypto X, and as well as on my YouTube, which is at Ryan Matta. That's where I put out some of my crypto and my Bitcoin stuff. And then everything else you'll find me on Rumble at Ryan Matta.
Really cool. Thank you so much for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.